Did you know there's a gun so quiet now, you can't hear it after 50 yards?
Well, that seems very quiet then.
Yeah, thought that shit was kind of crazy. Oh shit. Guess they weren't lying.
One of the quietest weapons ever made. They say that you can still have a conversation while you're firing it, and I think that definitely holds true. Right here we have the Lisle carbine. This is an integrally suppressed 45 caliber carbine that is bolt action. Why bolt action? Why integrally suppressed? What the hell is it? There's a lot to talk about. But suffice to say, this is probably one of the coolest clandestine weapons of World War II, and indeed it was used beyond World War II, well into the Vietnam War, and God knows what it's been used for since. But hope you guys will stay tuned, as today we talk about one of the quietest weapons ever made. Now, before we can get into it, we of course have to thank the sponsor of this channel. They keep this content free for you guys. The biggest sponsor of the channel is Primary Arms. If you're looking for 1-8 pistol optics, whatever you want, they got it, because they're awesome and we love them. And in fact, their optics are made deep in the minds of Moria over there. So we have to give a big thank you to Primary Arms. Go ahead and email them, tell them that you love the HTX-1 and you also love them just so much, guys. And of course, if you want to be a more American, we cannot recommend enough Henry repeating arms. Here's the thing, guys, I've shot a lot of guns throughout my career, both military and civilian, and the more I shoot, the more I kind of want something that just harkens back to a more simple time. Right here, all these lever actions are made in America or not made at all, and go check out henrythumb.com because, well, we can't talk about it here, but it's pretty dang cool. If you want to get better at shooting, don't forget some dry fire. You know, it's going to make your dry fire a little bit more fun, Mantis. Go and check them out. We have Sawyer's brother Connor right here looking a little retarded, but you know what? Mantis is super fun. Finally, all ammunition is provided for by AAC. With all that being said, let's talk about a very quiet weapon. A little bit of God rays right there. Just God letting you know that he'll still smite you. A lot of people have the question, what the hell is a Lisle anyhow? What is this? How did it come about? A lot of great questions, and all those questions we can answer right now. First thing we gotta ask is a ranch hand. Preston, you ever seen this rifle before?
No, not much.
You've never seen an Enfield rifle before?
No, well, yeah.
See, there you have it. So these actually are converted and modified Enfield 303 rifles. Now, if you're not familiar with what the Enfield was, it is a legendary bolt-action rifle from the United Kingdom. And they were made extremely well. And a guy had a question. What if I converted one of these and made them super quiet? So his first test was with a 22 that he went and hunted some rabbits around his house at. And then later, once he made it in 45, they did a simple test by firing it from the roof of a building into the Thames River, which is very crowded and not a single person heard it. That was the original test. These were then made in somewhat limited quantities, about 1,000 or so, maybe a little bit more. And they were primarily made for those British commandos. However, it was also used by the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which later became another clandestine service. But the point is that these continued to serve for a long time, and they were 100% used to dispatch people. Most notably, the British commandos had noted that they use these to eliminate certain high-ranking officials in situations where they need to be super duper quiet. Now, when they took the Enfield 303, obviously the Enfield is not chambered in 45. So what they had to do is they ended up using a Thompson barrel. They then had the suppressor extend over the entirety of the length of the barrel and past it, which makes up the majority of the length of this gun, to ensure that it would have the most amount of volume possible to ensure that it could do its suppression to the best of its ability. You have to realize that suppressor technology way back in 1943-44 when this guy was produced was not quite as sophisticated as it is now. So for the weapon to be as quiet as it was insane. In fact, it was noted to have about a decibel rating of like 85, 86, which is psychotically quiet compared to handguns nowadays, which typically, even when suppressed, come in at 115 to 120. And by the way, decibels are logarithmic, so that's significantly louder. Now, they also shortened the bolt up on this so that it could chamber 45, and we have the Lisle carbine. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna fire a couple rounds so you guys can kind of get a feel for it, and then we're gonna do some really fun testing. Is it truly quiet, utterly quiet at 50 yards? Let's do some shooting. All right, so I'm a British commando deep in enemy controlled territory. You know what? Maybe I just need a super duper quiet gun because things are getting a little hairy. So, as I jam that up because I'm an idiot, we have a target right here, 2 bullet holes already in it. Let's go ahead and let's give this guy 3 and let's see how quickly I can do it. If you knew anything about the good old British soldiers back in the day, they could run these Enfield super fast. Now, I'm not as cool as them, but we will do our absolute damnedest. Not bad. That is a quick bolt. That's one thing that the Enfield's always been known for, especially compared to the K98 and the 1903s that were typically used around this time period. So we have those 3 rounds right there. Those are my 2 earlier rounds. Pretty good grouping for racking that thing pretty quick, right? That's not bad, not bad, not bad at all. All right, next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and do a modified Mozambique. That's gonna be 1 to the chest, 1 to the head, and you know, if 1 round of 45 didn't take him out, pretty sure a 230 grain slug through the brain will. Oh, did you see that? Look at that. That was a bad day right there. All right, first round through, you know, lower chest, and then 1 just right off to the right of their nose. It's a bad day. We would call that death. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do a nice little test. We're gonna compare it to guns that were made 20, 30, and 70 years after it to see how it compares in terms of quietness. Now, I do wanna say modern suppressors are both lighter, better constructed, etc., etc. However, man, I just don't think you can beat it as far as the quietness goes. So we'll go ahead and we'll start off with a good old M9 with the Huxworks suppressor on there, and we're gonna do that direct comparison. So for this, Preston, you wanna come right in here, dude? All right here we have an M9 with the Huxworks suppressor. We have Preston right here. Preston, what's your shooting experience?
Minimal.
He's in the National Guard.
Yeah.
Which isn't real. But, all right, we're gonna go ahead and shoot these side by side. You ready? Okay, fire 1 more. Okay, significantly quieter compared to the M9. Now the M9 with the suppressor, very nice, sounds great, but how much quieter did that sound to you?
Yeah, it's a whole lot quieter, especially because the 9 is supersonic.
There you have it, and we'll be talking more about that in a minute. Now right here, we have an HK Mark 23, which is a 45 caliber suppressed handgun. Let's go ahead and let's see how it compares. These are both firing the exact same round, a 230 grain slug from AAC traveling at 830 feet per second, which is well below the speed of sound. Woo-hoo. Got that brass down the shirt. All right, even compared to the Mark 23, we saw the far quieter suppressor. A lot of people would say, well, because it's 45, of course it's going to be quiet. But you can tell here, even these both being 45, this has a lot more volume. And in addition to that, there's no cycling of the weapon. So go ahead and bring that gun back up and fire for me 1 more time. So you can see every time he fires, this entire weapon is cycling. That's adding noise to the action. Now, that can be great in certain situations. However, in a lot of very clandestine work, being able to control when you're cycling that piece of brass out can mean all the difference, because that piece of brass falling and hitting the ground could possibly give away your position through the brass flying through the air or from the sound of it hitting the ground. Let's do some more comparisons. Next up, we have an MP5 SD. Now, this is a legendary weapon because it is so quiet. It takes a 9mm and brings it down to subsonic. Being a smaller round, maybe it'll be just as quiet, but we still have the action that's going to make noise. All right, buddy. Pretty dang quiet, I would say. But even still, the Lisle is still a quieter weapon. That says a lot because the MP5 SD is known to be movie gun quiet. Pretty intense. Next up, we have 5.56. Now, 5.56 is going to be breaking the sound barrier. So even though it has a very good, very advanced can, we have a KGM on there, you're going to notice how loud it is, not just because of the suppressor noise, but due to the round breaking that sound barrier. Go ahead and fire around. 5.56 with the suppressor, very quiet, but still, the round breaks the sound barrier, just not even comparable. So we've done a lot of testing comparing all these weapons. I would say the one that gets the closest is probably going to be the MP5 SD. Would you tend to agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely due to subsonic round, suppressed weapon. It's definitely the closest, but still not there.
Still not there. So I think the next thing that we need to figure out is people have said that this weapon was so quiet that at 50 yards, you could not hear the report. Just the sound of the projectile going by. I think that there's only one way to test that, and that's for us to shoot at each other.
First time shooting the Delisle.
This is gonna be great. Hey, swinger, first tee.
Okay, next thing we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be testing that theory. First thing we're gonna do is shoot it at 25 yards, see how loud it is, and we're gonna shoot it at 50. Now, you guys are gonna be the ones who are gonna tell us how quiet was that, because you guys are gonna be downrange. We'll put ourselves downrange in just a second because I'm interested. So, we're gonna set our camera down right here. We'll be firing right past this, and let us know. 25 yards right here, which seems really close, but that's life. How did it sound? All right, let's see what it sounded like. Well, apparently that was true because we could only hear bullet right there, or you guys could only hear bullet. But I think me and Sawyer need to experience this now. Wouldn't you say?
100%.
Okay, so we're gonna go downrange. Once again, I'm getting shot at by guns that I own, so guess we'll start. Preston, ready? Fire! I could catch that thing, no problem. Just fire to the left of the hill. Fire at the big hill on the left. I just want to see if I can hear the report. That is ridiculously quiet. Okay, face the camera towards them. All right, ceasefire. Don't kill me. Do it, I'm ready.
Wait, no, Mike, I need a job.
I could still hear the puff of the round as the air exited the suppressor. So I wouldn't say completely quiet, but pretty damn close. That was pretty insane performance. I would guess at about 100. You're probably not hearing it at all. Preston, you want to back up to 100? Let's try that again. Yep. Now, it should be noted that, of course, this is not an original, right? This is a faithful reproduction through U.S. armament manufacturing. They did a great job with it. But I wonder if there were some differences with the original or with the ammunition. There's some variables that we can't exactly control for because, well, it's a very rare weapon. And, World War II ammo, the gunpowder is degraded. But pretty good performance. Let's try it at 100. Let's see what we get. Fire when ready! You know, I'm just hearing the round.
Yeah, same.
What is that direction? 45 sounds so silly. It's like, come here, you little I'm gonna get you. You know, that would be very indistinguishable and very hard to discern if that was a firearm or not. That would be very, very difficult.
Well, also, I feel like we are in the Idaho mountains early in the morning. It is super quiet out here, so of course we're going to hear something.
Yeah, I mean, there is zero noise out here. Like, just listen for a moment. We don't have any road noise, no city noise. I mean, there's nobody around us, dude. How interesting. Okay, now we're gonna have him shoot at us with the 9mm. The 9mm is gonna be breaking the sound barrier, so you can hear how loud that supersonic crack as it passes by is compared to the Delisle. And, you know, the action, the suppressor itself isn't as effective, so we're gonna be able to hear that difference. I just get domed and it's just like, you just put in another autistic guy and it's just no difference. All right, fire! There you have it. Just a little bit louder. Give us 5.56. This one's gonna be very loud. Physics, how does it work? Ceasefire! So you can see the difference. So we'll say this, from our testing that we've seen so far, the Lisle carbine at 50 yards, it's pretty difficult to discern. I would not say completely quiet. That being said, their testing parameters were different than ours. It's very quiet out here, but I would say pretty dang close. Further than 50, it would be very, very difficult to discern the pop of that shot, and the only thing that could possibly give it away would be the round itself cutting through the air. Very cool. We of course have to compare it to the Wellrod. Now, we don't have a Wellrod, but we do have the spiritual successor, which is the Station 6. This is a very, very cool weapon, and in fact, the Wellrod and the Lisle were both World War II weapons that were noted to be fairly comparable in terms of sound quality. The difference is that the original Wellrod, which looked very similar to this, we'll pop up a photo of it right here, it used cloth and wipes in order to quiet down the round. The problem with this is it affected accuracy because those rounds are touching the wipes themselves in order to quiet down the sound. So you had a lot of accuracy issues as well. The original Wellrods did not last that many rounds before the suppressor needed to be serviced. That being said, let's go ahead and let's do a little comparison right here. You mind loading up a mag and we'll do these side by side? Okay, now this one is in 9mm, but that being said, we have a fairly good comparison. Let's go ahead and shoot this guy first. That's fairly comparable. Okay, go ahead. That one's quieter for sure. I do wonder what a 45 caliber would sound like, because this does have to slow down the 9mm, but still an interesting comparison. First round pop. So if you've ever fired a suppressor, you might notice that the first round that you fire is just a little bit louder. There's a reason for that. There's more oxygen in the suppressor with that first shot, and it slowly comes back in. But after you fire that first shot, a lot of that oxygen gets burned up, and subsequent shots are much quieter. Oxygen is obviously combustible. To ameliorate that issue, what you can do is you can introduce some type of medium in here to help stop that first round pop from occurring. So one very common thing was either water, piss, or saliva. Now, water is probably the easiest way to do that. Thanks, buddy. So we're gonna go ahead, safety first. We're gonna open up the action. Add a little bit of water into there. Okay. Now that we have what's called a wet shot, let's see how quiet it is. That was really quiet.
Dude, that second one was ridiculously quiet.
Fucking crazy.
So even with that first round pop with the water in there that heavily quieted it down, then with the water for subsequent shots, very, very quiet. So, you know, as a sneaky little British commando back in the day, I'm 100% pissing in my suppressor. That was really quiet. You know, sometimes like we do videos on interesting weapons and we say to ourselves, you know, I really don't think like I'd be using this. I would definitely use this thing in a Civil War type situation, because if I wanted a really quiet gun, I'm filling the suppressor with water and I am not eliminating, you know, healthcare CEOs, but man, accuracy. So that's one thing that the Wellrod suffered from, was accuracy. So the question is, what about the Lisle? I find the Lisle to be a fairly accurate weapon. So right here, we're at about 80 yards. So let's see if we can nail that guy. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so at 80, not an issue. Step it out to 130-ish, and then we'll go even further. I've actually never shot it this far. Will you go ahead and range that target for me?
129.
129. No problems whatsoever. I would say that's pretty damn repeatable right there. So 130, no problem. Let's try 300. All right, we have about 220 to that big old barrel back there that no longer works. So let's see if we can hit it. A little bit of. Why is that so funny? Okay, let's see if we can hit it again. You see how long that takes? 45 really is like throwing a rock. Okay. Do you think I can get both rounds off for the first impact? No. Okay, let's try this again.
Yo!
So much fun. Okay, the weapon is plenty accurate. As we can see, we're making impacts out to about 200, past 200, especially as we get into the 300. It's a little bit more difficult just due to the fact that 45 is not meant to do that. It's not meant to be a precision cartridge. There's a lot of variability, but you know what? I'm very happy with the accuracy I'm getting out of this. I would have no problems taking a shot at about 200. And I know it's sacrilege, but if I were to have an optic on this, I think it would be much, much easier. Not that iron sights are terrible, it's just there's some adjustments that need to be made due to the rainbow arc of 45. That could really make this a lot easier. Okay, next thing we'll see the speed of shooting 3 guys at once. Oh, I hung up on the very last one. Okay, I think I can do it better next time around. No, not bad, right? So we've done a lot of shooting. Let's do a little bit of talking here as we break this down autistic style and go through it. So we have to give a big shout out to U.S. Armament Manufacturing. They have made a very beautiful reproduction of the Lisle carbine, and I'm very happy with the one that we got. It's pretty much a 1-to-1 exactly. And it's just cool. I love these reproduction historical guns because I always feel a little bit bad shooting like an actual historic weapon, but having a 1-to-1, I don't feel bad shooting this thing at all. I don't feel bad using this thing, crawling around the woods with it. So these are cool. I think the funniest thing that I've heard about this guy when I first posted it on Instagram was somebody's like, oh cool, it's got a goth girl nose ring. So we got a little bit of safety wire up there to secure the end cap of the suppressor. And from historical perspectives, it seems to be that it was known that these could do a couple hundred rounds before the suppressor needed to be serviced, taken apart, etc. This was a huge boon compared to the Wellrod at the time, which, as we talked about, would be between about 3 to 5 shots before it needed to be serviced. Those wipes just get shot out. Now, modern wipes like we have on the Station 6, far better, can last for a far longer period of time. In fact, that Station 6 probably has about 200 rounds in it at this point. But for the time that the Lisle was used, this suppressor was and still is considered to be very excellent. Now, moving from there, if you notice on our front sight right here, we have these 2 very large wings sticking up. This is to protect the front sight to ensure it doesn't receive damage. This is very common of many front sights of World War I and World War II, called a hooded front sight. You see these quite a bit, or a wing to front sight, just to ensure that it's protected. It's fairly rudimentary when it comes to the front sight, but once we move down the suppressor, and I think it's hilarious that the suppressor is so big that the iron sights actually sit on top of it, then we have a rear sight. It's a very simple U-notch rear sight. I think by using some type of diopter sight at the back, like a ring sight, would be much better. But I really didn't have any issues with this, and this is well graduated for the ranges that we've been shooting at. Very adjustable. I really don't have any qualms with it as far as adjustability. The Brits knew what they're doing. The British commandos knew what they're doing, and everything that we see here definitely matches up with what they would have needed. One little note in history was that originally they wanted to have this chambered in 9mm. However, it really didn't perform that well in 9mm, obviously due to the supersonic nature of that round. So when it switched to 45 is when they felt pretty good about it. There is several experimental versions of the Lisle that have been out there that we don't have our hands on, that had some type of paratrooper stock that we used for para operations during World War II. So understand that those are there. Further, during the Vietnam War, you saw a lot of MACV SOG guys carrying this, which is super freaking cool. And they did some modifications to these as well. That's a little less well documented, but suffice to say, this weapon's been around for a very long time. Now, moving down the suppressor right here, although the barrel does travel a good distance through this, the suppressor is completely recessed over. Now, it's not bleeding off any energy like you'd see from like an MP5 SD or a Venturas, but it very much so follows those same design principles, which is the suppressor goes over the barrel to both increase the amount of suppressor that you have, as well as increase the amount of volume that you have. One weapon that does this very well that I just mentioned is the AS Val / the VSS Venturas. That's known for being a psychotically quiet weapon. And even compared to 300 Black and 8.6, which are two currently made calibers that are made to be subsonic and very, very quiet. Although those will get very, very close, the larger rounds will still create a slight bit more noise, but I bet you if you had this exact weapon in 300 or 8.6, you'd probably end up being a little bit quieter. But it still does stand the test of time as being one of the quietest weapons ever made, and I think that is a really cool moniker to have. At the bottom here, we have a sling swivel. Right here we have a web sling on it of something that would have been used during the Korean War, during the Vietnam War, maybe not necessarily World War II, because you would have seen one of the leather slings used instead. Now, moving back, the stock is gorgeously finished. They really did do a phenomenal job when they converted this particular Enfield. Very happy with what I see here. If we go back to the magazine, I think this is probably the most disappointing kind of thing to talk about when it comes to the Lisle. And that's, although it does use a 1911 magazine, it is modified. So at the rear here, we do have this these notches that are different from what you typically see on a 1911. So you simply can't slap a 1911 mag into there. And in addition to that, these particular 1911 mags we were having issues with. There are definitely better 1911 mags out there. So if we load this all the way to 8, we do have a tendency of the round to nose down into the chamber and jam up. So we found that between 6 and 7, depending on the magazine, would be a little bit better. I'm sure as the magazine breaks in, it will probably feed a little bit easier, but as it stands, it definitely has issues right now. If we move back from there through the action right here, we can see both the shortened action and the shortened bolt right here. So let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, originally chambered for 303, that's a far longer cartridge. This bolt is massively shortened compared to what you'd have. So let's just go ahead and show you right here. So what's cool about the Enfield is, as far as like the cocking and stuff, it was on that downstroke. So what you had was just a bolt action that was very quick to actuate and to use. The compared to like the K90, and I know I kind of mentioned this before, but the Enfield is just known for having a very, very quick action. If you look at training of both World War I and World War II soldiers of the United Kingdom and that Commonwealth, you saw that a lot of them would often practice mad minutes or different drills to show the speed at which they could fire. Indeed, it's been said that they could fire so fast that it would mimic machine gun fire. No doubt when guys are just practicing on this day after day, they had a technique where they'd have their finger down as they're cycling to just keep that trigger running. I'm not nearly as good as them, but even with that being said, I was still able to run this gun very, very quickly. The gun's definitely a teeny bit finicky because of the magazines, but notwithstanding that, the action is very smooth. Now, there are a couple interesting notes about the Enfield as far as how the safety works and everything. So obviously the safety, we have our lever right here. If we rotate this all the way to the back, not only is the safety on, but in addition to that, it also locks the action. So should you be traveling through the thick jungles of Vietnam or Chicago, that's going to ensure that that weapon's not opening up or anything crazy like that as you're going about your duties. Now, should you fire this weapon and you hear a click and you know you have a round that's good, oftentimes a second primer strike will detonate a round. You can simply pull this to the rear again to reactuate the hammer, and then you can fire it again. As a quick note, obviously you can cycle the weapon, just put the next round in. If you really need to not cycle that weapon to make that noise, just pushing that back will allow you to fire that again. So that is the basic action when it comes to this. The magazine release is very odd. You can see the little lever right here. So you hit that guy, it will drop free for the most part, depending on the angle you're at. It's not the easiest weapon to load due to the little magazine well right here. It is the exact size of a 1911 magazine, but being that most of those 1911 magazines had those witness marks to see how many rounds are in them, it's kind of necessary to have them protected in this little magazine well right here. Excellent job there. From there, we have the stock, just your typical stock that you'd see on a Lee Enfield. And then, of course, we have that brass butt plate. Just a gorgeously finished weapon, a gorgeous looking weapon, and then converted with this giant suppressor. Probably one of the coolest looking designs that is out there right now. Now, I found that when you're training with this guy, the ability to cycle while keeping it in your shoulder definitely is going to be something that you should train to. So if this is something that you're seriously looking into, think urban operations. I think this would be a phenomenal weapon to have for any type of sneaky, breaky, cheeky, breaky stuff that you're doing out there. Being able to cycle that weapon just in your shoulder, they often have said is going to be the sign of a truly good bolt action rifleman. So definitely practice on that. Overall, when I think about this weapon, it screams usability. Everything about this gun is great. 45 ammunition is easy to come by. The large suppressor, the simplicity of the action all lend itself to a weapon that would do very well in a variety of situations. This is going to be a gun that I'm going to continue to use. I'm going to continue to take with me on hikes, that I'm going to take with me out to the woods, and that we'll talk about more when we talk about urban considerations, especially when it comes to survival. I love this gun. When I was talking to the guys over at US Armament Manufacturing, and they're like, hey, do you want to try out the Lisle carbine? I'm like, man, I don't want to be like, have to grow out like a goatee and a ponytail and to do a video review on this. But yet when I got it, it just felt right in my hands. I think that's the best thing we can say about it. And Sawyer, what did you think about shooting this thing, man?
It's really easy to shoot, and it's super quiet. It's literally like a paintball gun in terms of loudness.
Yeah, we talked about taking this to the paintball field to make sure that those people really call their hits. But obviously 45 would just blow them right out of their boots, so we don't want to do that. And then Preston got to shoot this quite a bit, and Preston, you loved it.
Super awesome gun. It's extremely fun to shoot, and thinking about it like operationally, it's super interesting because I was thinking if you're the enemy receiving fire from a guy who's like in a hide, it would be damn near impossible to actually find where that fire is coming from. There's no muzzle flash, hardly any noise. Like, super cool, like close quarters weapon.
Funny enough, for what it is, you wouldn't think close quarters, but I 100% agree with you on that. And Preston does bring up a really good point, and that's muzzle flash. These are known to have little to no muzzle flash at all, and there's obviously some variability due to powder charge on 45, but due to the size, you just really don't get any. So guys, I understand that these are kind of more boutique weapons in the fact that they're a little bit more rare. They're only made kind of one-off by companies doing reproductions, but I think the one that we see from US Armament Manufacturing, which we have right here, is that one-to-one of what I love to see. And in addition to that, they're made extremely well. The only thing I would say going into it, guys, would be to do a little bit of work on your 1911 magazines to make sure that they're running really, really good, and to really make sure that they're broken in. Get them loaded down, keep them loaded for a couple weeks to make sure that that spring is feeling pretty good on them. But this is 100% a buy for me. And this is something I often don't say when it comes to an NFA weapon, because they're such a pain in the ass usually to get your hands on, with getting government approval and all that stupid stuff that you shouldn't have to deal with. But man, get it. I think this is super cool. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We love doing videos on really interesting firearms like this. This is a part of Garand doing the testing. But as always, we'll keep giving you all the good content, from survival to ballistic testing to gun reviews. We do it all, guys. And you know what? An even better way to watch is through Patreon, because we have just all the retarded comments and pictures, and Sawyer will directly answer your messages, and if they're particularly perplexing, then he'll send it to me, which is every single question. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you guys ask me questions. I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
He's like, do you guys like Holocene? It's like, yeah, but we hate China. So guys, go and check it out. Thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you. Final thing for you guys is gonna be a little bit of dad advice. Now, my dad advice for today is going to be very simple, and that's going to be try to do something that scares you. And what I mean by that is not something that's actually illegal or terrifying, allegedly, but rather to challenge yourself, whether you are trying out skydiving, whether you're trying a new sport. These are things that are cool. Sawyer is constantly getting out there and trying new tricks on his mountain bike, because you know what? He loves it, and it brings him a lot of joy and a lot of good adrenaline rushes. Get out there, be like Sawyer, try new things out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you.